Their rampage went unchallenged, until a human warship showed up. Part 3 Vexthor stared at his tactical display, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. 2 of his escort cruisers destroyed in seconds, by a single ship 1/3 their size. It should have been impossible. Krill was already working, her fingers flying across her console as she analyzed the battle data. Commander, the human ship is using kinetic weapons. Solid projectiles accelerated to extreme velocities. Our shields were not designed to stop them. Then adjust the shields, Vexthor snarled. It will take time. Shield frequencies need to be recalibrated. And even then, kinetic weapons at those velocities are difficult to stop completely. Vexthor felt something he had not experienced in years. Uncertainty. He looked at the tactical display again. The human ship was still coming, still accelerating directly at his fleet. Every instinct told him this was suicide. No captain charged head-on at a superior force. It violated every principle of space combat. But this captain was doing exactly that. Recall all ships. Form defensive formation around the Bloodfang. We end this now. The 10 remaining escort ships abandoned their positions around Thessar Prime and converged on Vexthor's flagship. The Crimson Talons formed their standard battle formation, a sphere of overlapping fire that had destroyed countless enemies. Vexthor felt his confidence returning. One lucky victory did not change the fact that he had overwhelming firepower. The human ship would be atomized the moment it entered range. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Do-hyun watched the pirate fleet regroup. This was what Minho had predicted. The pirates were forming up for a traditional battle. They expected the human ship to slow down, to take up a defensive position, to fight at long range like everyone else. Distance to enemy fleet? Do-hyun asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing, Minho replied. They are holding position. All weapons are trained on us. Captain, they are waiting for us to come into range. Then let us not disappoint them. Hijin, give me everything the engines have. In engineering, Hijin pushed the engines beyond their design limits. Warning lights were flashing across every console. The engine temperature was entering dangerous territory. But the ship responded, accelerating even faster. Hijin whispered to her beloved engines, just a little more. I know you can do this. The Indomitable raced toward the pirate fleet. 40,000 kilometers, 30,000. The pirates held their fire, waiting for the optimal range. They had learned to be patient. Wait until the enemy was close enough that they could not miss, then unleash everything at once. 20,000 kilometers. Now, Vexthor commanded. The Crimson Talon's fleet opened fire. Energy beams, plasma cannons, missile swarms. The space between the fleets lit up like a star. It was the same overwhelming assault that had destroyed dozens of ships. No one had ever survived it. The humans did something unexpected. Instead of trying to evade, instead of running, the Indomitable flew directly into the weapons fire. Jiwon's point defense systems worked overtime, shooting down missiles and intercepting projectiles. But there was too much incoming fire. Some of it was going to hit, and hit it did. Energy beams struck the Indomitable's hull. Explosions blossomed across the armor. Shields that were already strained from the first engagement flickered and failed in several sections. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. On Thessar Prime, Governor Elthan watched in horror. The human ship was being torn apart. It had been a brave attempt, but it was over. No ship could survive that much fire. But the Indomitable kept coming. Damaged, yes. Bleeding atmosphere from 3 hull breaches, yes. But still accelerating, still charging forward. The pirates had destroyed the ship's shields and damaged its armor. But they had not stopped it, because humans built their ships to take punishment. While other species relied on shields, humans believed in thick armor and redundant systems. Damage that would cripple most ships just made the Indomitable angry. Hull breaches on decks 4, 7, and 9, an officer reported. Shields at 15%. Port weapons battery destroyed. Seal the breached sections. Do-hyun ordered, his voice still calm. Reroute power from shields to weapons. Jiwon, target their left flank. Those 3 escorts are positioned too close together. Targeting, Jiwon confirmed, a fierce smile on her face. Blood was running down her forehead from where she had hit her head during the attack. But she ignored it. Weapons locked. The Indomitable fired. Railgun rounds tore through space. The pirates tried to evade, but they were in formation, locked into their positions. The rounds hit the first escort ship, punched through its shields and devastated its midsection. The ship began to tumble. Before the pirates could react, the Indomitable launched missiles. But these were not normal missiles. Jiwan had programmed them to work as a swarm, coordinating their approach, overwhelming point defenses through sheer numbers. Dozens of missiles streaked toward the damaged escort and its two neighbors. The pirates shot down many of them. But not all. The missiles that got through detonated with nuclear fury. 2 more escort ships were crippled, atmosphere and debris streaming from their hulls. "They are using nuclear weapons," one of Krill's officers shouted in disbelief. Nuclear weapons were considered crude, primitive. Most species had moved past them thousands of years ago, but crude did not mean ineffective. The pirates were learning that lesson painfully. The Indomitable dove into the debris field from the destroyed orbital stations, using the wreckage as cover. It was a dangerous maneuver. Collision with debris at this speed could be fatal, but Do-yun was counting on the pirates being unwilling to follow. Most species were too cautious, too worried about damaging their ships. He was right. The pirate escorts hesitated at the edge of the debris field. That hesitation cost them. The Indomitable emerged from the debris at an unexpected angle and fired on 2 more escorts before they could react. One lost its engines. The other was cut in half by a perfectly placed railgun shot. Vexthor was no longer angry. He was furious. 5 escort ships destroyed or disabled. 5 by a single enemy vessel. His reputation was built on crushing opponents with overwhelming force. Now he was being humiliated by a ship half the size of his escorts. All remaining escorts converge on the human ship. Forget formation. I want every weapon firing. Destroy them. The 5 remaining escorts broke formation and swarmed toward the Indomitable. They surrounded it, firing from all sides. The human ship could not evade fire coming from multiple directions. It staggered under the assault. More armor buckling, more systems failing. In medical, Sung-ho was treating wounded crew members as fast as they arrived. Burns from energy weapons. Broken bones from being thrown during evasive maneuvers. A young engineer with a piece of shrapnel in his leg. Sung-ho worked mechanically, efficiently, even as the ship shuddered around him from weapons impacts. On the bridge, Minho shouted over the alarms. "Captain, we cannot take much more of this. Hull integrity at 60%, multiple systems failing." Do-yun looked at the tactical display. 5 escorts surrounding them, the bloodfang hanging back. The pirates thought they had won. They thought overwhelming numbers at close range would finish the job. They were about to learn why humans had a saying: never corner a wounded animal. "Hyejin, do we still have power?" From engineering, Hyejin's voice came through, strained but determined. "Barely, but yes, we have power." "Then give it all to the weapons, everything. Life support in non-essential areas, shut it down. Shields, we do not need them anymore. Every spare watt goes to the guns." "Captain, that will leave us defenseless," Minho warned. "We are already surrounded. Defense is not going to save us. But offense might." Do-hyun turned to Jiwon. "Do you have any surprises left?" Jiwon checked her console. She had been saving something. The drone swarms. Small, cheap, expendable. Each one barely larger than a human hand, carrying just enough explosive to damage unshielded systems. She had 300 of them loaded. "I have something that might work," she said. "Deploy them." The Indomitable released its drone swarms. 300 small drones burst from launch tubes and scattered in all directions. The pirates tried to shoot them down, but there were too many, moving too erratically. The drones swarmed over the escort ships like insects, targeting sensor arrays, communication dishes, weapon mounts, anything exposed. Small explosions rippled across the pirate ships as drones found their targets. It was not enough to destroy the escorts, but it blinded them, disrupted their coordination, turned their overwhelming advantage into chaos. And in that moment of chaos, the Indomitable struck with everything it had left. Railguns firing continuously, missiles launching in waves, even the emergency backup weapons coming online. The human ship was dying, but it was taking its enemies with it. One escort ship exploded, then another. The remaining 3 tried to retreat to regroup, but the Indomitable pursued them like a predator. Damaged, bleeding, but utterly refusing to quit. When the chaos ended, all 5 escort ships were destroyed or drifting hulks. The Indomitable floated among the wreckage, barely operational but victorious, and now there was only one target left. The Bloodfang hung in space, its crew watching in stunned silence. Vexthor's entire escort fleet was gone, destroyed by a single human ship that should have been obliterated in the first minute of combat. Their rampage went unchallenged, until a human warship showed up part. The journey to Thessar Prime was 3 days of constant preparation. Every hour counted, and Captain Do-hyun made sure none were wasted. On the bridge, Minho studied every piece of data they had on the Crimson Talons. He watched recordings of their previous battles, analyzed their formation patterns, and searched for any weakness. The pirates fought like most galactic powers, relying on superior firepower and strong shields. They positioned their escort ships in a protective sphere around the Bloodfang, creating overlapping fields of fire that destroyed anything that came close. But Minho noticed something. The formation was designed to protect against long-range attacks. The pirates expected their enemies to stay far away and trade shots across thousands of kilometers. What if an enemy came close? What if an enemy charged directly at them? The escort ships would have to break formation to engage, and that would expose the flagship. He brought his findings to Do-hyun. The captain studied the tactical display for a long moment, then nodded. Good work. If we can separate the escorts from the Bloodfang, we have a chance. Captain, charging directly at them is suicide. Every military doctrine in the galaxy says to maintain distance and use cover. Then it is good we are not following galactic military doctrine, Do-hyun said calmly. They expect us to fight like everyone else. We will give them something they have never seen. In the weapons bay, Ji-won was running combat drills with her crew. The Indomitable carried weapons that most galactic species considered primitive. Railguns that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. Nuclear missiles that exploded with raw destructive force. Kinetic weapons that relied on mass and velocity instead of exotic energy fields. The reason was simple. Most galactic shields were designed to stop energy weapons. Lasers, plasma, particle beams. All of them could be deflected or absorbed by properly tuned shields. But kinetic weapons, shields did not handle them well. A chunk of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed would punch through shields like they were not there. Ji-won smiled as she watched her crew load the railguns. The pirates had the best shields money could buy. They would not help much. Deep in the engine room, Hee-jin was performing a miracle. The Indomitable was not supposed to travel this fast for this long. The engines were running hot, temperature warnings flashing on every console. Coolant systems were working at maximum capacity. The power conduits were vibrating with stress. But Hee-jin had worked on starship engines for 30 years. She knew how to coax extra speed from systems that were already giving everything. She diverted power from non-essential systems, adjusted fuel flow to maximize efficiency, and personally monitored every critical component. When an assistant warned her that they were exceeding safety limits, she just laughed. Safety limits are for peacetime. This is war. In medical, Sung-ho prepared for the worst. He set up 3 additional treatment stations, stocked extra supplies, and briefed his medical team on combat trauma procedures. He knew from experience that when the Indomitable entered battle, people would get hurt. His job was to make sure they survived long enough to heal. The ship raced through space and the hours counted down. On Thessar Prime, Governor Elthan watched the clock. 48 hours had become 40, then 30, then 20. The Crimson Talons were coming, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. He had ordered evacuations, but there was not enough time. Most of his people would still be on the planet when the pirates arrived. Then, with 18 hours remaining, everything changed. The Bloodfang dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Thessar Prime system. 6 hours early, it was one of Krill's favorite tactics. Arrive before the enemy expects you, before they are fully ready. Strike fast and hard. Alarms screamed across Thessar Prime. The small defense force scrambled to their positions. Elthan rushed to the command center, his heart's pounding. They were out of time. The Bloodfang and its 12 escort ships moved toward the planet like a wall of death. The dreadnought was massive, over 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons. The escorts were each the size of a coalition cruiser. Together, they represented more firepower than most governments could deploy. Thessar Prime's defense force consisted of 6 patrol ships and 2 orbital defense platforms. They did not stand a chance. The battle began. The patrol ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles lanced across space toward the pirate fleet. The Crimson Talons barely slowed down. Their shields absorbed the attacks without effort. Return fire from the pirates was devastating. 3 patrol ships exploded in the first minute. The other 3 retreated, damaged and leaking atmosphere. The orbital platforms lasted slightly longer. Their heavier weapons managed to bring down one escort ship's shields. But before they could exploit the advantage, the Bloodfang targeted them directly. The Dreadnought's main cannons fired and both platforms ceased to exist. On the bridge of the Bloodfang, Vexthor laughed. Another easy victory. Another world ready for the taking. He turned to Krill. Begin landing operations. I want ground forces deployed within the hour. Krill was studying her sensors and something was bothering her. Commander, I am detecting an anomaly at the edge of the system. What kind of anomaly? A ship just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Single vessel approaching at high speed. Vexthor glanced at the display. One ship, barely a quarter the size of the Bloodfang. He almost dismissed it, then paused. What species? Krill checked her database. The signature matches Terran Federation design. Humans. Humans. Vexthor had heard of them. A new species recently contacted, primitive by galactic standards. One human ship against our entire fleet? Are they insane? Unknown, Commander. But they are definitely approaching. They will be in weapons range in 20 minutes, Vexthor considered. He could ignore the human ship and continue the raid. But something about this bothered him. No one charged directly at the Crimson Talons anymore. Everyone knew it was suicide. Either these humans were fools or they knew something he did not. Send 2 escorts to intercept and destroy them, he ordered. We will continue operations here. 2 of the escort ships broke formation and accelerated toward the approaching human vessel. On their bridges, the pirate crews felt confident. They had destroyed dozens of ships larger than this one. It would be quick work. On the Indomitable, alarms indicated that 2 enemy ships were moving to intercept. Do-hyun watched them come. His face was calm. Minho confirmed their approach vector. Confirmed, Captain. 2 cruiser-class vessels incoming fast. They will reach weapons range in 8 minutes. G1 status. All weapons ready. Targeting solutions locked. Just say the word, Captain. Heejin, engine status. Engines are hot but stable. We can give you whatever speed you need. Do-hyun nodded. He touched the ship-wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage the enemy. Remember your training. Trust your crewmates. And show these pirates what humans can do. Good hunting. He closed the channel and turned to Minho. Full speed ahead, straight at them. The crew had expected this. They had trained for this. But hearing the order still made their blood pump faster. Every military doctrine said to maintain distance. Use evasive maneuvers, preserve your ship. Do-hyun was doing the opposite. The Indomitable accelerated. The 2 pirate cruisers opened fire at maximum range, energy beams and missiles crossing the distance. Ji-won activated the point defense systems. Rapid-fire close-in weapons tracked and destroyed incoming missiles. Laser turrets shot down projectiles. 90% of the enemy fire was eliminated before it reached the ship. The remaining 10% hit the Indomitable's armor. The pirates expected the ship to be crippled. Instead, the damage was minimal. The human ship had armor that was absurdly thick for a vessel its size. The pirates had relied on shields for so long that they had forgotten the value of good armor. Then the Indomitable returned fire, and the pirates learned what it meant to fight humans. The railguns spoke. No energy beams, no plasma, just solid metal moving at tremendous speed. The slugs crossed the distance in seconds and punched straight through the pirates' shields. One hit a cruiser's engine section. Another hit a weapons bank. A third hit the bridge. The cruiser shuddered and went dark. The second cruiser tried to evade, but Ji-won was faster. More railgun rounds followed by a spread of nuclear missiles. The missiles detonated against the cruiser's hull, and the ship broke apart. 90 seconds. 2 cruisers destroyed in 90 seconds. On Thesser Prime, Governor Elthan watched his sensors in disbelief. On the Bloodfang, Vexthor stopped laughing. And across the Crimson Talons fleet, every pirate suddenly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. Their rampage went unchallenged, until a human warship showed up. Part 4. The bridge of the Bloodfang was silent except for the steady beep of sensors. Vexthor stood frozen, staring at the tactical display. The human ship was a wreck. Its hull was scarred with blast marks and gaping holes. Atmosphere was venting from at least 6 breaches. Several weapon batteries were destroyed. It was barely holding together, but it was still moving. Still turning toward his flagship. Still preparing to fight. Krill broke the silence. Commander, the human vessel has taken catastrophic damage. Most of its weapons are offline. Shields are at 3%. They cannot possibly pose a threat to us. Vexthor wanted to believe her. The Bloodfang was 3 times the size of the human ship. Its weapons were fully operational. Its shields were at full strength. By every logical calculation, this should be an easy victory, but everything about this battle had defied logic. A single ship had destroyed his entire escort fleet. A captain who should have retreated hours ago was instead charging at a dreadnought. Logic said the humans should be dead. Reality said they were still fighting. Prepare all weapons, Vexthor ordered. The moment they come into range, we fire everything. I want nothing left of them but atoms. On the Indomitable, the situation was desperate. The damage reports kept coming in, each one worse than the last. Hull integrity was at 40%. Half the crew was injured. Engineering reported that the engines were on the verge of complete failure. Medical was overwhelmed with casualties. Oxygen was running low in several sections. Do-hyun listened to each report with the same calm expression. When the reports finished, he spoke. Minho, what is our combat effectiveness? Minho checked his console.
We have 1 railgun battery operational.
2 missile tubes. Point defense is at 30%. The plasma lance is charged but unstable. If we fire it, it might destroy us along with the target. So we have 1 shot. Yes, Captain. 1 shot, Do-hyun nodded. He activated ship-wide communications. His voice was calm, steady. The voice of a man who had already made his peace with whatever came next. All hands, this is the captain. I will not lie to you. We are in bad shape. We have 1 more fight left in us, and after that we are done. But we came here to do a job. We came here to stop the Crimson Talons, and we are going to finish what we started. He paused, then continued. In a few minutes we are going to do something crazy. Something that goes against every rule of space combat. We are going to charge a dreadnought that outguns us 10-1, and we are going to win. Not because we have better weapons or stronger shields, but because we are human and humans do not quit. Remember that. No matter what happens in the next few minutes, remember that we stood when everyone else ran. We fought when everyone else said it was impossible. That is what it means to be human. He closed the channel. The bridge crew looked at him, waiting for orders. These people had followed him through battles before. They trusted him. Even now, when death seemed certain, they trusted him. Yejin, Do-hyun said quietly, I need you to do something that is probably impossible. From engineering, Yejin's voice was hoarse but determined. Impossible is what you keep asking for, Captain. What do you need? I need you to divert all power to engines and structural integrity. Everything. Weapons, life support, shields, sensors. Everything goes to engines. There was a pause. Then Yejin spoke, and there was understanding in her voice. You are going to ram them. No, I am going to do something worse. Can you do it? Captain, if I divert everything, we will be flying blind and defenseless. We will have 1 chance. If we miss, we will not get a second try. I know. Can you do it? Yejin laughed, a sound somewhere between exhaustion and exhilaration. Give me 2 minutes. Do-hyun turned to Minho. Plot a course directly at the Bloodfang, maximum acceleration on my mark. Captain, are we really going to ram them? Not exactly. Trust me. Minho nodded and started calculating the course. Ji-won checked her weapons 1 last time. The plasma lance was ready, though the indicators showed it was unstable. The weapon had never been properly tested. It was supposed to be evaluated in controlled conditions, not fired in the middle of a battle. But nothing about this battle had been normal. Plasma lance charged, Ji-won reported. Captain, I should warn you. This weapon requires the entire ship's reactor output. If we fire it, we will be completely without power for at least 5 minutes afterward. No engines, no weapons, no life support. We will be a drifting hulk. Noted. Prepare to fire on my command. In medical, Sung-ho was securing his patients for high-speed maneuvers. He did not know exactly what the captain was planning, but he knew it would involve extreme acceleration and probably extreme violence. He made sure everyone was strapped down and hoped they would survive the next few minutes. The Indomitable began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. Power that should have been spread across dozens of systems was now focused on just 2 things: engines and structural integrity. The ship accelerated like it had been shot from a cannon. On the Bloodfang, alarms began to sound. The human ship was moving faster than should be possible for something so damaged. It was coming straight at them, not evading, not trying to circle for position, just charging directly ahead. They are going to ram us, Krill said, disbelief in her voice. Then we destroy them before they get close. Vexthor snarled. All weapons, open fire! The Bloodfang unleashed its full arsenal. Every weapon the massive dreadnought carried fired at once. The space between the two ships became a wall of destructive energy. Nothing could survive flying through that. The Indomitable flew through it anyway. With no power for shields, the weapons hit the hull directly. Armor melted under energy beams. Sections of the ship were ripped away by explosions. The human vessel was being torn apart piece by piece, but it kept coming. Momentum carried it forward even as it was destroyed. The distance closed rapidly. 5 kilometers, 4-3, brace for impact. Vexthor shouted. At 2 kilometers, Do-hyun gave the order. Now Hee-jin. Emergency thrusters. The Indomitable suddenly rotated 90 degrees. Maneuvering thrusters that were designed for docking maneuvers fired at full power, pushing the ship sideways. Instead of ramming head-on into the Bloodfang, the human ship slid alongside it, passing within meters of the dreadnought's hull. Vexthor realized the trap too late. At this range, shields did not matter. Armor did not matter. The two ships were so close they were almost touching. Ji-won, fire the plasma lance, Do-hyun commanded. Ji-won pressed the firing button. The plasma lance activated. Every joule of power from the Indomitable's reactor channeled into a single focused beam of superheated plasma. The weapon was designed to burn through the heaviest armor at medium range. At point-blank range, nothing could stop it. The beam lanced out and struck the Bloodfang at the center line. It burned through the dreadnought's outer armor like it was paper, through the inner hull, through deck after deck, through crew quarters, weapon bays, engineering spaces. The beam carved a path of destruction straight through the massive ship, and then it hit the reactor. The Bloodfang's reactor was designed to power a vessel 3 kilometers long. It contained energy equivalent to a small star. When the plasma lance punctured the containment, that energy was released all at once. The explosion split the dreadnought in half. The forward section tumbled away, atmosphere and debris streaming from the wound. The aft section detonated seconds later, as secondary explosions reached the fuel reserves. The most feared pirate ship in the sector simply ceased to exist. On the bridge of the Bloodfang, Vexthor had just enough time to realize he had been beaten before the explosion consumed him. Krill, strapped into her station, survived a few seconds longer. Her last thought was that she had spent years studying combat tactics, learning from the best military minds in the galaxy, and in the end, she had been defeated by a species that did not follow any of the rules. The Indomitable drifted in the wreckage, completely powerless. The plasma lance had drained every reserve. The ship was dark, cold, silent. On the bridge, emergency lighting provided the only illumination. Do-hyun sat in his chair listening to the sound of his own breathing. Status? He asked quietly. Minho checked his console, running on backup power. The enemy flagship is destroyed. Remaining pirate vessels are fleeing the system. Thesar Prime is safe. Casualties? From medical, Sung-ho's voice came through on emergency communications. 12 dead, 43 injured, but most of the crew is alive, Captain. Do-hyun closed his eyes for a moment. 12 dead. 12 people who would not be going home. But thousands on Thesar Prime would live because of what they had done here. Good work, everyone, he said quietly. We did what we came to do. On Thesar Prime, Governor Elton watched the remains of the Bloodfang scatter across his sensors. The Crimson Talons, the terror of the Outer Rim, had been defeated. By one ship. One human ship that refused to quit even when defeat seemed certain. He sent a message to the Indomitable, not knowing if anyone was alive to receive it. This is Governor Elton. Thank you. Thank you for answering when no one else would. Thank you for fighting when fighting seemed pointless. Thank you for showing us that some things are worth standing up for, even against impossible odds. You saved 40,000 lives today. We will never forget. Their rampage went unchallenged until a human warship showed up part. The Indomitable drifted in the wreckage field, dark and silent. Inside, the crew worked by emergency lighting to restore basic systems. Hyejin and her engineering team crawled through damaged conduits, bypassing burned-out circuits, rerouting power from the backup generators. It would take hours just to get life support fully operational again. On the bridge, Do-hyun waited. There was nothing else to do. Without engines, without communications, they were helpless. If another enemy showed up, they would be sitting targets. But the sensors showed the remaining pirate ships fleeing into deep space, leaderless and terrified. The Crimson Talons were broken. 3 hours after the battle ended, sensors picked up new contacts entering the system. Minho identified them immediately. Coalition ships, Captain. Multiple vessels. They are hailing us. Communications were still not working properly, but the engineers managed to establish a basic voice link. A Venturi voice came through, formal and precise. This is Coalition Fleet Captain Voran. Human vessel, please respond. What is your status? Do-hyun activated the microphone. This is Captain Do-hyun of the Terran Federation ship Indomitable. We are without main power, multiple hull breaches. We have casualties and require medical assistance. There was a pause. Then Voran spoke again, and this time there was emotion in his voice. Captain Do-hyun, we received the sensor logs from Thessar Prime. We saw what you did. We are moving to render assistance immediately. Stand by. The Coalition fleet consisted of 8 ships, a combined force from multiple species. They had been dispatched when the distress call first came from Thessar Prime, but they had expected to arrive too late, to find another destroyed colony. Instead, they found the colony intact and the Crimson Talons defeated. Over the next several hours, Coalition ships docked with the Indomitable and began rendering aid. Medical teams transferred the wounded to better-equipped facilities. Engineering crews helped stabilize the damaged systems. Supply ships provided food, water, and oxygen for the human crew. Sung-ho supervised the transfer of his patients, making sure each one received proper care. The Coalition doctors were amazed at how many of the human crew had survived. Most species would have suffered higher casualties from that level of damage. But humans had redundant organs, could survive in low-oxygen environments longer, and had a stubborn refusal to die that impressed the medical staff. Captain Voran came aboard the Indomitable personally. He was an older Venturi, with the bearing of someone who had commanded fleets for decades. He found Do-hyun on the bridge, still in his damaged uniform, coordinating repair efforts. Captain Do-hyun, Voran said formally, I am Fleet Captain Voran of the Galactic Trade Coalition. On behalf of the Coalition and the people of Thessar Prime, I thank you for your service. Do-hyun stood and offered his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Voran took it. Though handshakes were not part of Venturi culture, we did what anyone would do, Do-hyun said simply. That is where you are wrong, Voran replied. No one else did it. The Crimson Talons terrorized 17 colonies. They destroyed ships from a dozen different species. Everyone knew they needed to be stopped. But no one was willing to risk their forces against such a powerful enemy. Until you. We did not defeat them because we were stronger. We defeated them because we could not afford to fail. Voran studied the human captain. I have fought in space for 40 years. I have commanded dozens of ships and won many battles. But I have never seen anything like what you did today, charging directly at a superior force, using weapons most species abandoned centuries ago, fighting past the point where any reasonable captain would have surrendered. He paused. Tell me, Captain, is this normal for humans? Do-hyun considered the question. We have a saying on Earth. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, it is the size of the fight in the dog. We knew we were outgunned. We knew we might not survive. But those people on Thessar Prime needed help, and we were the only ones who answered. So we fought with everything we had. Even when victory seemed impossible, especially then, humans have fought impossible battles throughout our history. Sometimes we lose. But we always fight. Voran nodded slowly. The galaxy needs to know about this. The Coalition is going to want to study your tactics, your weapons, your approach to combat, and others will want to form alliances with a species that fights like you do. Over the following days, as the Indomitable was towed to a Coalition shipyard for repairs, the story of the battle spread across the galactic networks. The sensor logs from Thessar Prime were transmitted to military analysts on 100 worlds. News services broadcast the story of how a single human ship defeated the Crimson Talons. The reactions varied wildly. The Althari, who had lost 9 ships to the pirates, felt a mixture of respect and humiliation. They held a formal ceremony acknowledging human bravery and requested joint training exercises to learn human tactics. The Korlax were disturbed by human willingness to take risks that seemed suicidal. They issued a report warning that humans were dangerously unpredictable. The Venturi were fascinated by human combat doctrine and wanted to study it extensively. In the shipyard above the Coalition world of Nexus Prime, the Indomitable underwent extensive repairs. Engineers from multiple species worked alongside the human crew. They were amazed by how the ship had been designed. Thick armor that most species considered wasteful, redundant systems that took up valuable space, weapons that used primitive kinetic energy instead of advanced energy fields. One Korlax engineer asked Hee-Jin why humans built ships this way. She had answered simply, "Because space is dangerous and ships break. We would rather have a ship that can take a beating and keep fighting than a ship that is efficient but fragile." In the medical facility, Do-hyun and his crew recovered from their injuries. Minho had received a prosthetic arm to replace the one he had lost when a console exploded. He insisted it was an improvement because the new arm could interface directly with ship systems. Ji-won had suffered burns on her arms but refused to stay in bed, spending her recovery time redesigning the plasma lance to be more stable. Sung-ho had worked throughout the battle despite a broken rib and was now finally getting it properly treated. Governor Elthan came to visit Do-hyun in the hospital. He brought with him a delegation from Thesar Prime, including families of the colonists who had been saved. They wanted to thank the human captain personally. "Captain Do-hyun," Elthan said, "I sent that distress call to 47 governments. 46 of them either ignored it or told me to evacuate. You were the only ones who came. Why?" Do-hyun thought about the question. "Because you asked for help, and because it was the right thing to do. On Earth we have many countries, many cultures, but we have learned that when someone needs help, you do not ask what it will cost you. You ask what it will cost them if you do nothing." One of the colonists, a young Venturi child, stepped forward shyly. "Are all humans like you? Brave and strong?" Do-hyun smiled. "We are not always brave. Sometimes we are scared, but we try to be brave when it matters most, and we are strong because we work together. My crew did not win that battle because we are special. We won because we trusted each other and refused to give up." The delegation stayed for an hour, sharing stories and gratitude. When they left, Do-hyun sat quietly, thinking about what came next. 3 weeks after the battle, the Indomitable was ready to return to service. The repairs were complete. The ship looked different now, with visible patches where new armor had been welded on. But it was spaceworthy again. The Terran Federation sent orders. Return home. There would be ceremonies, medals, recognition. But there were also requests. Hundreds of them. Other colonies wanted human protection. Other governments wanted alliances. The military wanted to study what the Indomitable had done and train other ships to fight the same way. Before they left, Captain Vorin came to see Do-hyun one last time. "Your species has made quite an impression, Captain. The galaxy is talking about little else. Some are impressed. Some are nervous. But all of them are paying attention to humanity now. Is that a good thing?" Do-hyun asked. "Time will tell. But I will say this. For years, pirates and warlords operated with impunity in the Outer Rim, because everyone knew the coalition could not protect every colony. We did not have enough ships, enough resources, enough will to fight them all. But now those pirates are afraid, because they know that if they attack the wrong target, a human ship might show up, and humans do not retreat." Do-hyun considered this. "We did not mean to frighten anyone. We just wanted to help, I know. But sometimes the best way to keep peace is to make sure those who would break it know there will be consequences." Vorin offered his hand again. "Safe travels, Captain. I suspect we will be seeing more of humanity in the years to come." The Indomitable departed the shipyard and began the journey back to Earth. On the bridge, Do-hyun sat in his captain's chair and looked at his crew. Minho at tactical, testing his new prosthetic, Ji-won at weapons, already planning upgrades. Hee-Jin in engineering, treating the ship like the precious thing it was. Sung-ho in medical, ready for whatever came next. They had gone to Thesar Prime expecting to die. Instead, they had changed the galaxy. Their rampage went unchallenged, until a human warship showed up or one the colony world of Thesar Prime should have been celebrating. It was harvest season, and the fields were full of golden crops that would feed millions across the sector. Instead, the people were preparing to die. Governor Elthan stood on the balcony of his office, watching the sunset with heavy eyes. He was a Venturi, a species known for their calm and logical thinking. But tonight there was no logic that could save his world. He had received the reports 3 hours ago. The Crimson Talons were coming. For 6 months. The pirate fleet had been a nightmare across the Outer Rim. They appeared without warning, destroyed everything in their path, and vanished before help could arrive. 17 colonies had fallen. 17 worlds now lay in ruins, their people dead or enslaved. The pirates took what they wanted and burned the rest. The Crimson Talons were led by Vexthor, a warlord whose cruelty was legendary. His flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Bloodfang, was 3 times larger than any military vessel in the sector. Its weapons could crack a planet's crust. Its shields could withstand concentrated fire from an entire defense fleet. Vexthor had proven that again and again. Beside Vexthor stood Krill, his second-in-command. Where Vexthor was brutal force, Krill was cold intelligence. She planned every attack, studied every defense, and found every weakness. Together, they were unstoppable. The Galactic Trade Coalition had tried to stop them. They had sent fleets. The Althari, proud warriors who had never retreated from any battle, had sent their finest ships. The Crimson Talons destroyed them in hours. The Korlax, masters of defensive technology, had fortified 3 colonies with their best shields and weapons. The pirates had broken through in minutes. Every species that tried to fight had failed. Elthan turned away from the sunset and walked back into his office. His aide was waiting, a young Venturi named Tolar. The boy looked terrified. "Did anyone answer our distress calls?" Elthan asked, though he already knew the answer. Tolar swallowed hard. 47 governments received our message. 43 have not responded. 3 have sent condolences. 1 has sent a warning to evacuate immediately. And the last one? The Terran Federation. They say they are sending a ship. Elton felt a flicker of something in his chest. Not hope, exactly. The humans were too new to the galaxy, too unknown. They had made first contact with the Coalition only 50 years ago. Their ships were smaller than everyone else's. Their technology seemed backward. But they had sent a ship when no one else would. "How long until it arrives?" Elthan asked. 3 days at maximum speed. "But Governor, the Crimson Talons will be here in 48 hours. Elthan nodded slowly. Even if the humans arrived in time, what could one ship do? Still, it was something. "Send my thanks to the Terran Federation. Tell them we appreciate their courage." Across the galaxy aboard the Terran Federation warship Indomitable, Captain Doyon stood on the bridge and studied the star charts. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and a calm expression that never seemed to change, even in a crisis. His crew had learned to read the tiny signs that showed what he was thinking. Right now, the way he held his jaw meant he had made a decision. "Minho," he said quietly. The tactical officer looked up from his console. Minho was young for his position, barely 30, but he had the best strategic mind Doyon had ever seen. "Yes, Captain? Show me everything we know about the Crimson Talons." Data filled the main screen. 17 destroyed colonies. Estimated pirate fleet strength of 1 dreadnought and 12 escort vessels. Known weapons capabilities far exceeding Coalition standards. Success rate against defensive forces, 100%. "They have never lost a battle," Minho said. "Every fleet that has engaged them has been destroyed or forced to retreat. The Althari lost 9 ships. The Korlax lost 6. The Venturi lost 12. What are their tactics? Overwhelming firepower at range. They stay behind their shields and pound targets until nothing is left. They sometimes arrive early to catch defenders unprepared. Their formation is tight and disciplined. Krill, their tactician, is considered a genius by every military analyst in the sector." Dohyun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Jiwan, what is our weapon status?" The weapons specialist, a woman with quick hands and quicker reflexes, smiled. "All railguns are operational. Nuclear missiles are ready. The plasma lance is installed but untested. Point defense systems are at 100%. And I have some surprises ready if things get interesting. Hyejin, can we make it to Thessar Prime before the pirates arrive?" The chief engineer looked up from her console. Hyejin was older than most of the crew, with gray in her hair and grease permanently under her fingernails. She knew every centimeter of the Indomitable and treated the ship like her own child. "Not unless I push the engines past their safety limits. We will arrive 6 hours after the pirates." "Then push them," Dohyun said simply. "Captain, if I push too hard, we might arrive with damaged engines. We could be fighting at reduced capacity. If we arrive late, there will be no one left to save." "Push the engines," Hyejin grinned. "Yes, Captain. I will make this ship fly like she has wings." In the medical bay, Sungho was preparing for casualties. He was the ship's doctor, a quiet man who spoke little but missed nothing. He had served with Doyon for 5 years and had patched up the crew after more battles than he cared to count. He knew this mission would be bad. The casualties estimates were running through his head. He tried not to think about them. The ship's AI, Aria, spoke in her calm electronic voice. Captain, I have calculated our probability of success against the Crimson Talons. Based on their combat record and our current capabilities, we have a 12% chance of victory. 12%, Do-hyun repeated. The bridge was silent. Everyone was waiting to see what he would say. Aria, recalculate based on the assumption that the enemy has never fought humans before. There was a pause. Calculating. New probability 23%. Better, Do-hyun said. Now recalculate based on the assumption that we are not trying to win. We are trying to buy time for Thessar Prime to evacuate. Another pause. New probability 41%. Minho looked at the captain. Are we trying to win or trying to buy time? Do-hyun smiled for the first time. We are going to do something they have never seen before. We are going to show them what happens when humans decide to fight. He turned to face his crew. I will not lie to you. This mission is dangerous. We may not survive, but 40,000 people on Thessar Prime are counting on us. When the Crimson Talons arrive, they will find us waiting, and they will learn that their rampage ends here. The crew responded without hesitation. They had followed Do-hyun through hell before. They would follow him again. The Indomitable turned toward Thessar Prime and accelerated into the darkness. Behind them, 3 days of travel stretched ahead. Before them, the most dangerous pirate fleet in the galaxy was waiting, and for the first time in 6 months, the Crimson Talons were about to face an enemy who did not know how to quit.